In the quietude of a remote corner, nestled against the embrace of an ancient, sprawling forest, stood a house that bore the marks of time and solitude. Its wooden frame, withered and grey, whispered tales of years gone by, stories unheard by the bustling world beyond. This house, cloaked in an air of serene isolation, was now home to John, a soul seeking respite from the clamour of modern life. John, with their insatiable curiosity and a penchant for the reclusive, had found in this house a sanctuary. Each morning, they would wander to the edge of the forest, their gaze lost in the tangled dance of branches and leaves, feeling an inexplicable connection to the wild, untamed spirit of the woods. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the frenetic pace of the outside world faded into a distant memory. But on this particular morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, something unusual caught John's eye. A path, narrow and winding, meandered into the depths of the forest, its presence as startling as it was intriguing. John was certain this path had not been there the day before. It seemed to appear overnight, like a secret passage unveiled by the forest itself. The path beckoned, its mysterious allure tugging at John's adventurous heart. The forest, usually a familiar sight from their window, now held a promise of undiscovered secrets, whispering a silent invitation to explore its hidden depths. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, John decided to heed the call, to journey down this newfound trail, and uncover the story it yearned to tell. Stepping onto the path, John felt a subtle shift in the air, a change almost imperceptible yet undeniably present. The world behind seemed to recede, giving way to the embrace of the forest, where ancient trees stood as silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of the ages. And so, with a deep breath and a determined stride, John ventured into the unknown, into the heart of the forest that had, until this moment, remained a mere spectator in their solitary existence. The path wound its way through the dense foliage, a serpentine trail that slithered into the very soul of the woods. The further John ventured, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining in an intricate canopy above, casting the world below into a perpetual twilight. The air grew cooler, and a sense of foreboding settled over John, like a shadow clinging to their every step. It was in this realm of half-light and whispered secrets that John first noticed the symbols. Carved into the bark of the trees, they were runes of an unknown origin, cryptic and arcane. Each symbol seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, as if imbued with the essence of the forest itself. John felt a chill run down their spine, the realization dawning that this path was more than just a trail through the woods. It was a journey into the heart of a mystery that had lain dormant, waiting for the right moment, the right person, to awaken it. And so, with a mix of fear and fascination, John continued on, deeper into the embrace of the forest, where shadows danced and time seemed to lose its meaning. The path, once a mere curiosity, had now become a voyage into the unknown, a journey that promised to reveal the hidden truths of the world that lay beyond the trees. The path, once a mere whisper in the wilderness, began to assert itself more boldly beneath John's feet. The terrain shifted subtly, the earth beneath becoming softer, more yielding, as if welcoming John deeper into his embrace. The air, thick with the musk of ancient trees and unseen flora, carried an undercurrent of something unplaceable, something that tugged at the edges of John's awareness. As the day aged, the forest around the path seemed to transform. Trees, once familiar in their stoic beauty, now bore an ominous aura. Their gnarled roots snaked across the path, like the fingers of a slumbering giant. The light, filtering through the canopy, cast elongated, eerie shadows that twisted and writhed with a life of their own. John's heart quickened. This was no ordinary forest trek. It was then that the whispers began. Faint at first, they seemed like the rustling of leaves or the gentle murmur of a distant stream. But as John pressed onward, the whispers grew more distinct, more insistent. They were in a language unknown to John, yet they carried an emotional timbre that was unmistakable, a tone of warning, of sorrow, perhaps even of fear. The shadows seemed to deepen, growing more tangible, as if they were the remnants of something once living, now lost to the forest. John's eyes caught fleeting glimpses of figures flitting between the trees, too quick to be seen clearly, too real to be dismissed as mere trickery of the light. The primal part of John's mind screamed to turn back, but the path, with its undulating turns and unseen terminus, beckoned them further. Then came the most unsettling discovery yet. Scattered along the sides of the path were remnants of what appeared to be old campsites. Ashen fire pits, tattered remnants of tents, belongings strewn and abandoned in haste. Each site told a silent story of previous travelers, souls brave or foolish enough to traverse this path, their fates ominously unclear. John's skin prickled with the realization that they were not the first to walk this path, and perhaps, like those before them, they were not meant to find its end. The forest, with its whispering winds and shadowy figures, seemed to watch John with an ancient, knowing gaze, a witness to a story that was unfolding once again. As the sun began its descent, casting the forest into an ever-deepening gloom, John pressed on. The path, now more a labyrinth than a trail, twisted and turned upon itself in maddening patterns. The whispers grew louder, the shadows thicker, and the sense of being followed, of being not alone in this eerie expanse, became a palpable presence at John's back. This was no longer a journey of curiosity, it had become a quest for survival, a test of will against the ancient and unknowable forces that dwelled within the heart of the forest. And as the light faded and the path seemed to stretch endlessly ahead, John realized with a growing dread that the true nature of this journey was only just beginning to reveal itself. The forest's embrace tightened as the day waned into twilight, its shadows growing bolder, reaching out like dark, sinuous fingers. The whispers morphed into an unintelligible chorus, echoing through the trees, a symphony of the unknown that sent shivers down John's spine. The path, once a curious anomaly, now felt like a deliberate trap, its winding route a snare set by the forest itself. With each step, the peculiar phenomena intensified. The air seemed to thicken, charged with a static energy that made the hairs on John's arms stand on end. The shadows no longer merely danced, they pulsed with a malevolent life, stretching towards John as if yearning to touch, to claim. The forest's once benign whispers now felt like accusations, or worse, invitations from unseen entities lurking just beyond sight. John's heart pounded in their chest, a frantic drumbeat echoing the mounting dread. The once clear path became a disorienting maze, its direction twisting in impossible ways, looping back on itself like a serpent devouring its own tail. The familiar sense of direction, which had guided John in their earlier explorations of the woods, now abandoned them to the forest's whims. As night unexpectedly fell like a curtain, John found themselves plunged into an unnatural darkness. The forest's canopy, dense and unyielding, blotted out the stars and moon, leaving John in a world devoid of light. In this oppressive darkness, the path vanished entirely, replaced by a labyrinth of thorns and tangled undergrowth, as if the forest itself was reshaping to keep John ensnared. It was then that John felt a presence, not just the imagined product of fear, but something real, something alive and conscious. It was following them, a silent stalker moving through the shadows with a predatory grace. John could feel its gaze, heavy and intent, a pressure on the back of their neck, a whisper in their mind that was not their own. In a clearing that seemed to appear from nowhere, John stumbled upon a sight that rooted them to the spot. An altar, ancient and crumbling, stood at the center, its stones covered in moss and the dark stains of age. The air around it was colder, heavier, as if the very earth recognized its significance. Symbols, similar to those carved on the trees but more intricate, more deliberate, adorned the altar, glowing faintly with an eerie phosphorescent light. John's instinct screamed to run, to escape this place that felt so fundamentally wrong, but their legs refused to obey. As they stood there, transfixed by the altar, the presence behind them grew closer, more oppressive. It was no longer merely following, it was upon them, enveloping them in an intangible yet suffocating embrace. In a moment of desperate courage, John turned to face the presence, but there was nothing there, only the shifting shadows and the whispering wind. Yet the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, remained. The forest had ceased to be a place of natural wonder. It had become a domain of unspeakable terror, a realm where reality warped and twisted into something unrecognizable. And John, alone and lost, realized with a growing horror that the path might not lead out of this nightmare, but deeper into his heart. The night in the forest deepened, a darkness so absolute it seemed to swallow sound and sense alike. John, caught in the grip of terror and disbelief, felt the world around them warp and twist into a grotesque parody of nature. The oppressive presence that stalked them through the shadows now felt as real as the thudding of their own heart. In the heart of this darkness, the clearing with the ancient altar stood as a beacon of eerie, unnatural light. The symbols etched into the stone pulsed rhythmically, casting unsettling shadows that danced across the clearing. The air around it was charged, crackling with an energy that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. John, driven by a mix of fear and a desperate need for answers, approached the altar. Each step felt like wading through a thick resisting force, as if the very ground beneath them was trying to hold them back. The presence, so close now, seemed to be urging them forward, its silent will pressing against John's mind. As they reached the altar, the forest around them fell into a hushed silence, the whispers and rustling leaves ceasing abruptly. The darkness pressed in, suffocating, yet centered on the altar, there was clarity. John could see the symbols now in vivid detail, each one intricately woven into a narrative that spoke of ancient rites, forgotten deities, and the thin veil between worlds. It was then that the entity revealed itself. Emerging from the shadows like a wraith, it was both horrific and beautiful, a creature of nightmares and forgotten lore. Its form was ever-changing, a swirling mass of darkness from which eyes, mouths, and limbs appeared and vanished. Its gaze was a physical weight, its attention a cold fire that seared into John's very soul. The entity spoke, its voice a chorus of whispers, each word echoing through John's mind. It spoke of the path, the creation of its will, a trap for the curious and the brave. It told of the forest, its eternal guardian, and of the countless souls that it ensnared over eons. Its words were a tapestry of despair and madness, weaving a story of a world beyond the veil, hungering for the life and sanity of those who walked the path. John, frozen in both fear and awe, realized the true horror of their situation. The path was not a mere trail in the forest, it was a gateway, a bridge between realities, and they were the latest in a long line of unwitting pilgrims. The entity moved closer, its form enveloping John. In that moment, John understood that there was no escape, no return to the mundane world they once knew. They were part of the forest now, part of the eternal, cyclical horror that the path represented. In a final act of defiance, or perhaps acceptance, John reached out and touched the altar. The symbols blazed to life, a blinding light in the darkness, and the entity recoiled, its form dissipating like smoke in a gale. The path reappeared, clear and inviting, leading back to the world John had left behind. But it was a fleeting opportunity, a narrow window of escape from a fate unimaginable. With every ounce of their will, John ran. They ran through the twisting, turning path, through the oppressive darkness, away from the whispers and shadows that clawed at their heels. The path, once a convoluted maze, now seemed to guide them, its turns and loops unwinding, leading them back towards the faintest hint of dawn on the horizon. The night's horrors pursued them, an unrelenting storm of fear and madness, but John pushed forward, driven by a primal need to survive, to see the light of day once more. The forest around them blurred into a tunnel of darkness and motion, every step a battle against the overwhelming presence that sought to drag them back into the abyss. As the first light of dawn broke through the canopy, John emerged from the forest, collapsing onto the ground just beyond the path. The sun's rays pierced the darkness, scattering the shadows and silencing the whispers. The path and the nightmare it contained vanished once again, leaving no trace of its existence, no evidence of the horrors it concealed. But the forest remained, timeless and watchful, a silent guardian of secrets too terrifying to comprehend. And John, forever changed, knew that while they had escaped, the path was still there, waiting, ready to ensnare the next unwary traveler who dared to uncover its mysteries. As the first light of dawn caressed the world, John lay there, gasping for breath, their body trembling with exhaustion and terror. The forest, once a source of solace and wonder, now loomed like a menacing specter, its seekers veiled in the shadows of the trees. The path had vanished, as if it had never existed, but its memory etched a deep scar in John's mind. In the quiet aftermath of their harrowing escape, the world seemed surreal, a fragile venue over an abyss of madness and horror. The sun rose higher, casting its warm, reassuring light over the landscape, but the comfort it brought was superficial. Beneath the serene facade of the morning, John felt the lingering presence of the entity, a cold echo in the recesses of their mind. The journey back to the house was a blur, each step an effort to distance themselves from the forest and its dark guardian. The house, once a haven, now felt like a flimsy shelter against the unknown terrors lurking just beyond the tree line. Inside, John struggled to reconcile the night's events with reality. The entity's revelations, its tales of other worlds and lost souls, played over in their mind like a nightmare from which they could not awaken. Time seemed distorted, the hours stretching and compressing in disorienting cycles, a lingering effect of the entity's influence. The world outside the window appeared normal, the forest once again just a mass of trees and shadows, but John knew better. They knew that beneath the ordinary facade lay truth so terrifying, so alien, that it threatened to unravel the very fabric of their sanity. In the following days, John grappled with the aftermath of their experience. Sleep was elusive, filled with haunting dreams of the path, the altar, and the entity. The forest called to them, a siren song of whispers and secrets, tempting them to return, to delve deeper into its mysteries. But John resisted, their survival instinct a counterpoint to the dark fascination that lingered in their thoughts. The encounter with the spectral entity, the guardian of the path, had left an indelible mark on John. It had revealed a glimpse of a reality beyond comprehension, a world where the rules of nature and physics were mere suggestions. The entity, with its shifting form and cryptic words, was a being of immense power and knowledge, a keeper of secrets that spanned eons. John's narrow escape, their return to the safety of their home, felt like a temporary reprieve, a brief respite in an ongoing struggle against forces beyond their understanding. The path may have disappeared, but the forest remained, a silent witness to the horrors it concealed. As John pondered their experience, they realized that their journey into the forest was more than just a physical ordeal. It was a descent into the depths of their own psyche, a confrontation with the primal fears and curiosities that dwelled within. The path, with its twisting route and enigmatic purpose, was a manifestation of those fears, a physical representation of the journey every soul must take into the unknown. And so, with a heavy heart and a mind burdened with unanswerable questions, John began the slow process of healing, of rebuilding the fragile sense of normalcy that the forest had shattered. But deep down, they knew that the path was still out there, somewhere, waiting for the next traveler to uncover its secrets, to brave its terrors, and to face the entity that lurked in the heart of the forest. In the days that followed, the once tranquil rhythm of life in the house by the forest felt irrevocably altered. John moved through their daily routines as though wading through a thick fog, the vividness of their ordeal in the forest, casting long shadows over even the most mundane moments. The forest's edge, once a boundary to a world of natural splendor, now stood as a stark reminder of the incomprehensible realities that lay beyond. Despite the terror and the lingering trauma, a part of John yearned for understanding, for answers to the myriad questions that the forest and its spectral guardian had awoken. The path might have vanished, but it had left an indelible trail in John's psyche, an unspoken invitation to explore the depths of the unknown. Yet, John knew that some mysteries were better left unexplored, some paths better left untrodden. The forest, with its ancient trees and hidden secrets, was a place of power and danger, a realm where the veil between worlds was thin and treacherous. The entity, a being of darkness and knowledge, was a guardian of that realm, a sentinel watching over the threshold between reality and the abyss. In the wake of their escape, the world seemed smaller, more fragile. The realization that such horrors existed, that entities like the guardian of the path lurked in forgotten corners of the world, was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. It was a testament to the vast, unknowable nature of the universe, a reminder that humanity's understanding of reality was but a thin sliver of light in an ocean of darkness. As time passed, the intensity of John's experience began to fade, the edges of memory blurring into the realm of nightmares and imagination. Yet, the sense of unease, the feeling of being watched, never fully dissipated. John would sometimes catch themselves staring into the depths of the forest, half expecting to see the path reappear, beckoning them back into his shadows. The story of the unseen path became a private legend, a personal myth that John held close. It was a tale of curiosity and courage, of terror and survival, a reminder of the thin line that separated the known from the unknowable. John's life continued, marked by an undercurrent of wariness and wonder. The forest remained, a silent, enigmatic presence on the edge of their existence, a gateway to mysteries untold. And though the path had disappeared, John knew that it, or others like it, still wound their way through the hidden places of the world, waiting for the next wanderer to discover them. The story of John and the unseen path ended not with closure, but with an open-ended whisper, a lingering question that echoed in the rustling leaves and the whispering winds. The path was gone, but the forest, the entity, and the mysteries they held remained, hidden in the shadows, just beyond the reach of understanding, a haunting reminder that the world was filled with wonders and horrors beyond human comprehension, always waiting, just out of sight.